Chapter 28. Luke began screaming and couldn't stop. Suddenly his brain didn't seem to have any control whatsoever over what his body did. He felt his legs spring up and propel him forward toward Jen's dad. He saw his own hand grab for the gun and wrestle it away. He heard a voice he barely recognized as his own screaming again and again, "No, no, no." "Stop," Jen's dad yelled. "Stop, you little fool, before you get us both killed." Somehow the gun was in Luke's hand. Jen's dad lunged at him, and Luke could picture Jen's dad tackling him, just as Jen had tackled him all those months ago. But this time, Luke stepped to the side at the last moment, and Jen's dad crashed uselessly into the far wall. Luke pointed the gun at him and struggled to hold it steady. Jen's dad turned around slowly. "You can shoot me," he said, holding his hands up helplessly in the air. "I might even welcome the chance to stop missing Jen, but it would be a mistake. I swear to you, in the name of everything that's sacred, in Jen's name, I'm on your side." Jen's dad stared into Luke's eyes, waiting. Luke felt a surge of pride that he'd gotten the upper hand, and that he had earned the right to decide what happened next. But how could he know what was right? Surely Jen's own dad wouldn't lie in her name, would he? Luke squeezed his eyes shut. He lowered the gun to his side. "Good," Jen's dad said, audibly releasing a breath. Luke let Jen's dad walk toward him, gently take the gun, and lay it on the desk. "I was going to explain," Jen's dad said, panting a little. He sat down. "I only work at the Population Police Headquarters. I don't agree with what they do. I try to sabotage them as much as I can." Jen never understood either. Sometimes you have to work from inside enemy lines. Jen's dad talked and talked. Luke thought he was repeating everything he said 2 or 3 times, but that was okay, because Luke's brain was functioning so slowly. He needed the extra help. "Do you know much history?" Jen's dad asked. He tried to remember if there were any history books among his family's collection in the attic. Did adventure stories of long ago count? Just from the books Jen loaned me," he cleared his throat. "Which ones?" Luke pointed to the ones on the shelf above the computer. "And she gave me some articles, printouts on the computer." Jen's dad nodded. "So you got the propaganda from both sides," he said. "No truth." "What do you mean?" Luke said. "The government publications are trying to convince people of one thing, so they stretch the facts. And the underground is just as extreme in its own ways, making statistics match their cause. So you know nothing." "Jen said the stuff from the computer was true," Luke said defensively. Just saying her name made him wince, and now she was dead. How can she be dead? Jen's dad waved that away impatiently. "She believed what she wanted to, but I'm afraid—" He stopped, and Luke was afraid Jen's dad might start crying again. Then he swallowed hard and went on. "I'm afraid I encouraged her. I passed along some slanted information. I wanted to give her hope that someday the population law would be repealed. I didn't know she'd..." Luke knew he wouldn't be able to bear seeing Jen's dad break down again. "So what should I know?" Luke said. "What is the truth?" "The truth," Jen's dad muttered, catching on to those 2 words as though Luke had thrown him a lifeline. He recovered himself quickly. "Nobody really knows. There have been too many lies for too long. Our government is totalitarian, and totalitarian governments never like truth." That made no sense to Luke, but he let Jen's dad go on talking. "You know about the famines?" Luke nodded. "Before that our country believed in freedom and democracy and equality for all. Then the famine came, and the government was overthrown. There were riots in every city over food, and many, many people were killed. When General Sherwood came to power, he promised law and order and food for all. By then, that was all the people wanted, and all they got." Luke squinted, trying to understand. This was grown-up talk, pure and simple. No, it was worse than grown-up talk that he was used to, because all his parents ever talked about was the corn harvest and bills and the likelihood of frost at the end of May. Those Luke understood. Governments being overthrown, city riots, they were beyond his comprehension. "Barron's got more," he blurted, then blushed because it sounded so rude. Jen's dad laughed. "True, you noticed. I know it's not fair, and I'm not proud of it, but government officials made a conscious decision to allow one class of people to have such privileges. Jen probably introduced you to the junk food, didn't she?" Luke nodded. "That's a good example. Officially, it's illegal, but no one ever got arrested for supplying Barron's with junk food, which is mighty convenient considering all of the government officials are barons. The cynicism in his voice sounded so much like Jen that Luke almost gave in grief again, but he forced himself to focus on what Jen's dad was saying. The government justifies keeping everyone else in poverty because people seem to work the hardest when they're right on the edge of survival, he continued. The government does try to make sure that most people, the ones who cooperate, do survive. If you've heard your parents talk about the farmers, you know that nobody loses their farm anymore. But also, nobody ever makes enough to live comfortably. Luke thought about his parents' constant worries about money. Was it all unnecessary? Were they just being manipulated? He felt a spark of anger, but buried that too. Because he had other questions, but even Barron had to follow the population law. He said, "Is that because," he gulped, "because it's necessary? Were there too many people? Are there?" "Probably not," Jen's dad said. "If food had been distributed fairly, if people hadn't panicked, if we'd had good leaders being honest about the needs for everyone's cooperation, we could have survived the crisis without cultivating anyone's rights. And now, it shouldn't be a problem if some people choose to have 3 kids or 4 kids, as long as some others choose to have none." But the population law became General Sherwood's proudest accomplishment. That's why even barons aren't exempt. He points to that and says, "See how much control I have over people's lives?" "So it is wrong," Luke said, trying to grasp the point. "I believe so, yes," Jen's dad said. Luke felt a strange sense of relief that it wasn't truly wrong for him to exist, just illegal. For the first time since he read the government books, he could see the two things being separate. Maybe that was why he'd been too scared to go to the rally. He'd even truly believed, the way Jen had, that he might have gone. And he would have been killed as she was. It was all too confusing and scary to think about. Jen's father looked at his watch. "I need to get back to work. I can only hide so much. If you want, I can have the fake ID for you by tomorrow night. In the meantime, I'd advise you to—" He broke off. Luke knew why. A sound from his worst nightmare pounding on the door, and then the command, "Open up! Population police!"